Hello, Super Deep Divers. It is a new episode of Superhero Deep Dive, and I am your host, as always, Jason. I have a great episode scheduled for you today. It's kind of unique. Haven't seen much about this character, so I am pumped to let you guys know. Alright, before I get into it, I have some house cleaning to do and my normal disclosure, so let me get that stuff out the way. Now, the information is pulled from different sources across the internet and may or may not be completely complete, but they do give a really good insight on the current superhero. Also, if you guys ever wanted to reach out to me, you can via email at b4itall, so b4itall@yahoo.com. You can catch me on Outworld Fleet Radio every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the day at www.un-conventional.com/radio. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram under Super Deep Dive, and I try to use the hashtag Superhero Deep Dive. And you can catch me on YouTube under Superhero Deep Dive, where I post videos all the time, which leads me into the house cleaning section. I wanted to get up to 500 subscribers, and I did it as of I think the episode aired Tuesday, and I was there Wednesday, confirmed at 500 plus subscribers. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. I love each and every one of you. As a result, I did do a video where I posted a giveaway. So, if you haven't, check out the video. It's right on the top of Superhero Deep Dive YouTube page. Comment, like, subscribe. Give me your favorite superhero and why. I think right now I have 1 or 2 comments, so the contest is looking pretty slim. Good chances to win. But I will finish the contest on Wednesday, the 18th of October at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So by the time you guys hear this, you have a day to get in. And I have some fun giveaways, so I'm going to do a prize pack. I'm going to send it your way. But in the meantime, let's get into it. This week I am talking about X-Men member Tempus. She is awesome. She's an Aussie. She is great. Her name is Eva Bell. And when Eva Bell was born, she was raised on Australia's Gold Coast. Now, growing up, she idolized Captain America and hoped that one day she might follow in his footsteps by becoming a superhero that represented Australia. Eva's mutant powers manifested when she was a teenager, and on a night out with a friend, Eva struck up a conversation with a boy she liked. Things were going well until Eva's older, overprotective brother Steven saw and tried to break them apart. A brawl quickly erupted, and when Eva tried desperately to calm things down, time itself stopped. For over 20 hours, everyone and everything in the immediate area was frozen in time, including Eva herself. Eva had created her first time bubble, and the media and authorities quickly surrounded it. Cyclops, Emma Frost, and Magneto arrived to the scene and managed to free Eva from the time bubble's effects. There they informed her that she was a mutant, and Cyclops invited Eva to join his cause to make the world a better place for their kind. With some assistance from Emma Frost, Eva managed to break her time bubble. Now, tensions were high, and surrounded by the Australian Federation Guard, Eva had little choice but to escape with her rescuers. Now, Cyclops and his small band of X-Men at the time were fugitives living in an abandoned Weapon X facility in Canada, which they dubbed the New Charles Xavier School for Mutants. Eva was one of the new school's first students, and little did she know that she was also one of his first recruits for Cyclops' mutant revolution. Eva had more than a few questions about what Cyclops was planning, and had concern about Cyclops' mental well-being in general. Despite this, Eva donned a superhero costume, took the codename of Tempest, and joined the X-Men on missions to rescue new mutants. In the wake of the Phoenix Five, the relationship between law authorities and mutants had grown increasingly hostile, and Tempest's growing control of her time powers were helpful in these tense situations, especially when a new breed of Sentinels, seemingly built by S.H.I.E.L.D., was thrown into the mix. Eva asked if she could visit her mother to let her know she was okay, and Cyclops was hesitant but ultimately obliged, and magic teleported the team to her home in Gold Coast. Eva only got to exchange a few words with her mother before the Avengers arrived. Now, having been alerted by S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers were on the scene to arrest Cyclops and Emma so that they could answer for crimes they committed when they were corrupted by the Phoenix Force. specifically Cyclops' murder of Charles Xavier. Blame was tossed around the situation, and it rapidly escalated. Just as a fight between the two groups was about to break out, Eva stepped in and used her powers to trap the Avengers in a time bubble. Now, realizing the reality of her situation, Eva bid farewell to both her mother and her old life, and departed once again with the X-Men. So that's kind of crazy, right? Like, there's a lot there that can be unpacked. So much so that I have to rearrange my papers because apparently they printed out of order. So, but no, if we think about it, she ended up having to go up against someone she idolized in Captain America, and that's kind of a hard thing to do. So keep that in mind. Now Cyclops, he was proud that one of his students was able to stop the Avengers so easily, but Eva was alarmed that she was on the opposite side of those she deemed as the good guys, especially her childhood hero Captain America. Eva confided in her fellow students, Triage, Benjamin Deeds, and Goldballs, who expressed similar fears about what form Cyclops' revolution would take and what their part in it would be. Now, keep all this in mind, okay? Because Cyclops is a dick. I'm just letting you guys know right now. Love him or hate him, I've never been a fan of Cyclops because he's a dick. And I stand by it. That's going to be one of the hills I die on. Cyclops is a dick. He's got great motivations. He's got great intentions. He's an awesome strategist, but he's a dick. After a nearly disastrous confrontation with Dormammu in the demonic dimension of Limbo, Cyclops and his fellow teachers decided it was time to start actively training their students in the use of their new powers. During a sparring mission, Eva trapped Magic in a time bubble, but when she tried to free her, Magic vanished. She appeared moments later, having traveled forward in time, and Eva began to realize that there was much more to her powers than she knew. As new threats emerged, Cyclops continued to push his recruits harder than ever before. To test their survival skills, Eva and her fellow students were dropped into a strange land called Tabula Rasa, which is an area of Montana that had artificially advanced 130 million years and thus was overrun with new species. In a sudden encounter with a dangerous creature, Eva threw up a time bubble, but instead of stopping time, she disappeared. Eva suddenly found herself in the middle of a chaotic battle between a hero named Jonathan Raven and an alien army. Eva assumed that this was part of Cyclops' training scenario, but as the alien army began to close in on her, she felt like she was in real danger and produced a time bubble and disappeared once more. This time, Eva found herself in the Old West and had begun to realize that this was not part of any test. When in mortal danger, Eva would instinctively travel through time, but had no control over her destination. That is crazy, right? Like, she just disappears and randomly pops up somewhere in like a totally different time. Not just in a different part of the world, just different time. So Eva encountered nothing but hostility due to her strange appearance, but eventually met a local hero named the Rawhide Kid, who informed her that the year was 1875. Upon learning of her situation, Rawhide Kid put a gun to Eva's head to make her think she was in danger, and Eva's time powers kicked in once more. So Rawhide Kid tried to scare her back home, but instead, Eva arrived in the year 2099, where she was found by the X-Men of that time period. And that's awesome because 2099 is a great X-Men or Marvel universe, I guess. It was so cool back in the day. But anyways, realizing that she was lost in time, the X-Men took Eva to the Sorcerer Supreme. There, Eva finally found a familiar face as Magic, having used her sorcery to prolong her lifespan, was still alive and had become Sorcerer Supreme of the galaxy. Unfortunately, Magic no longer had her time travel abilities, but agreed to train Eva so that she could learn to control hers and return home. Now, 7 years had passed during that time for Eva. During this time, Eva married a man named Danny and had a daughter. Although she continued to train under Magic, she gave up hope of ever returning to the past and now focused on her family. So, she kind of she stopped worrying about going back to her original time. She had a daughter, she had a husband, she had a family, so she was focused on that. Now, Magic warned her that she would eventually have to return home, and there was nothing she could do to change that. But Eva didn't want to listen, refusing to abandon her husband and her child, which I think is normal, right? Any mother would be like, I'd rather just stay here with my family who I love. They're a part of you at that point, so it's not like you can just walk away, or at least I hope not. Now, the choice was taken out of her hands when Magic's Sanctum Sanctorum was attacked by a vengeful demon. Eva ran in to help, trapping the demon in a time bubble, but she was too late. With her dying breath, Magic told Eva that she had to go back to her own time period, and when she did, she had to make sure that Hank McCoy, who's the Beast, stood trial for his recent crimes. At that moment, Eva's husband and daughter came rushing in. The demon broke free of Eva's time bubble, and with both her and her family's life in mortal danger, Eva's uncontrollable time traveling powers kicked in, and she sent herself back to prehistoric times. So she didn't even go back to her original time. She went way back. Now, strangely, Eva wasn't alone with this. She was rescued from a dinosaur attack by the dark sorceress Morgana Le Fay, who had been trapped there by Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. And I love this because, no matter where she goes, she's getting herself in trouble. Now, while Eva recuperated, Morgana used her magic to invade Eva's mind and was delighted to learn that a ticket home had just fallen into her lap. When Eva awakened, she immediately wanted to return to her family, but Morgana explained to her that they would no longer exist. Eva didn't want to listen and tried consciously using her time powers to return to the future. A fight with Morgana broke out, and Eva was once again transported, but this time, Eva was able to control herself as she went through the time stream, pushing herself to go further and further until she arrived back in 2099. That is awesome. Her desire to be with her family overruled everything else. So Eva rushed to her home, but found strangers living there. And when she went to the Sanctum Sanctorum, she was greeted by Tony Stark instead of Magic. Eva was heartbroken to learn that her husband and daughter were wiped from existence. Tony felt her pain, but told her that she still had a journey to go on in her native time period. Eva watched as Tony used his magic to show how every choice she ever makes creates a new branch and how her future is still unfolding. Tony took her to the Tabula Rasa and assured her that she had the control within her to return to when she first left. Apologizing to her lost family, Eva closed her eyes and sent herself back in time. Eva succeeded, returning to Tabula Rasa mere moments after she first disappeared. Noticeably older though, Eva's classmates sensed something was wrong, but Eva said nothing of what really occurred. Celeste, one of the telepathic Stepford Cuckoos, read Eva's mind and learned everything, but Eva made her promise to keep the life she had lived for the past 7 years a secret. That's a lot to shoulder. So I can imagine the last thing you want is some telepath coming being like, hey, sorry I invaded your privacy and pulled up your family that no longer exists. Want to talk about it? That's insane. That's insanity. But that's what they did. Alright, anyways. Let's see here. Okay, hiding her pain. Eva resumed. I can't say that. Hiding her pain, Eva resumed her old life. Cyclops noticed a change in her, not only in her appearance, but also in her efficiency with her powers and her newfound willingness to question his decisions. With the team on the verge of a full-blown war with S.H.I.E.L.D., there was little time to confront her about it. Celeste tried to persuade her to tell the others about what had happened, but Eva wasn't ready, still in the process of accepting what she had lost. I think that's kind of important. You have to recognize that, I'll tell people when I'm ready, but right now I'm not ready. She's still dealing with the fact that she lost her husband and her daughter, and then she found out that because of her time travel, they were wiped out of existence. So it's not like she could even go back to make things right. They were just gone. That's crazy. What a burden on your shoulders. Now, let's see here. Worried about their friend, the Stepford Cuckoos took matters into their own hands and told Cyclops everything. At first, Cyclops respected Eva's privacy, but eventually brought it up, implying that she should have asked for his help, because he's a dick. This angered Eva, because perhaps deep down, she knew Cyclops needed more help than she did. And because he's a dick. Sorry guys, that's going to be the recurring theme. Cyclops is a dick. When Professor X's last will and testament surfaced, X-Men from all factions gathered together and learned about the existence of Matthew Malloy. Malloy was an Omega-level mutant with uncontrollable and seemingly limitless powers. To prevent tragedy, Professor X placed mental barriers in his mind to prevent him from accessing all his powers, and routinely checked in on him to make sure they were still in place. Now with Professor X's death, it now fell to the X-Men to take up this duty. Unfortunately, they were too late. Having already taken out an entire small town in North Carolina, Matthew Malloy was already in a heated standoff with S.H.I.E.L.D., and to make matters worse, instead of trying to shut things down, Cyclops tried to recruit Matthew for his mutant revolution. Once again, say it with me now. Because Cyclops is a dick. Alright. Seeing what a potential threat Matthew was, Eva took action. She traveled back in time to the early days of the X-Men to warn Professor X that his plan for dealing with Matthew would ultimately fail. Professor X was furious as he now had knowledge of his future, including his death, but when the two of them traveled back to the present and learned that the situation had escalated and many of the X-Men had been killed, they knew what had to be done. So I guess Professor X traveled back with her at this point, so now he's back in the current timeline. The pair traveled even further back in time, where Professor X used his powers to prevent Matthew's parents from ever meeting, effectively wiping the man from existence, which is kind of harsh. Before erasing the encounter from his own mind, Professor X warned Eva that if she continued to use her powers in such a way, she would lose even more than she had already had. Which is funny and kind of hypocritical that Professor X would tell that to Eva, considering he prevented someone's parents from even meeting. Like, whatever, dude. Returning to the present, Eva confronts Cyclops, telling him that he's a dick, but telling him about the disaster that she had just averted, a disaster that he helped escalate because he's a dick. She scolded him for his recklessness and told that if he didn't get his act together, she'd do the same to him as she had done to Matthew Malloy. And with that, Eva left Cyclops' school. Eva kept her distance from the X-Men for some time, but did pay a visit to Beast in the aftermath of his trial. Eva informed him that in all the future she visited, she had been told how important it was that he answer for his crimes, presumably his ill-advised decision to bring the original X-Men to the present. And if you're unfamiliar with that, Beast had this awesome idea to bring the original X-Men from the 60s back to the present time, so they can kind of so the X-Men now could see where they were and be better because of it. I'm not sure, but it wasn't a good idea apparently, because they messed up the time stream with it and they couldn't get back. Anyways, before departing, Eva stressed how she hoped he had learned his lesson this time. Sometime later, Professor X began taking steps to form a new mutant nation on the living island known as Krakoa. Unlike previous failed attempts at mutant homelands, Krakoa would allow students to thrive like never before, and Eva was a key reason why. Under the guidance of Professor X, Eva used her powers in coordination with 4 other mutants, and together they were able to resurrect the deceased, beginning with gold balls. An egg would be formed, with which the reality warping powers of Proteus would make viable. The DNA of the deceased mutant would be injected into it, when Elixir would use his control over human biology to kickstart the forming of a husk, which Eva would then use her time powers to speed up to the desired age. The final member of the group was Hope, who ensured the success of each resurrection by boosting the group's powers. Upon completion, Professor X would use his telepathy to inject the husk with a backup of that mutant's mental being, and thus the mutant would live again. That's a lot of work. A new age of mutant kind had begun, and mutants no longer had to fear death. Dubbed the Five, Eva and her fellow miracle workers were highly revered on Krakoa. Due to their status and the incredible work that they were able to accomplish, the Five became an inseparable family unit, and Eva enjoyed the life of being treated as sacred. The Five were enormously busy, having an excessive backlog of deceased mutants to resurrect, including the 16 million mutants who perished on Genosha. Some relief eventually came in the form of X-Factor, a team dedicated to investigating mutant deaths. The Five works closely with X-Factor, making the process of resurrecting millions of mutants a bit less overwhelming. Understandably, the work of the Five is usually met with grand celebration, and so, for the first time in a while, Eva is experiencing some much-deserved happiness. So, this is pretty crazy, right? Let's take a look at everything that's going on. She is using her powers to resurrect people and bring them up to current age. That's a lot. But what do you guys think of Eva? I find her really interesting. She's got such great power set, which we'll get into in a minute. But she's just had such an adventure, literally jumping from 2099 to prehistoric times, back to 2099 again, and then back to present time. So it's insane. But let me know. Like I said, you can drop me an email at b4itall@yahoo.com. You can send me a message or comment on Twitter or Instagram under superdeepdive. Or you can catch me on YouTube, where you can comment, like, subscribe, share, put a critique, put a request for a future episode, fun facts that you may know that I may not have, all that good stuff. Your own perspective on the characters. At Superhero Deep Dive. I post videos there all the time, and every comment gets acknowledged in some form or fashion, even if it's just like a like button or something. But but if there's a conversation to be had, we will have a conversation, because I love all my fans. But let's get into her powers. So Eva is a new mutant activated after the Phoenix dispersion, and has been called near Omega level by the X-Men with the following powers. She's got time manipulation, which means she can stop time. Eva can seriously slow down time in a specific place. In one instance, Doctor Strange stated that her ability is the best he had ever seen, and a person within the field would require 100 years to make one step. She can also slow time on contact. She can also accelerate time. Eva is able to speed up time to such an extent that several decades pass inside, while only a few minutes passed outside. As part of the Five, she has used this ability to accelerate growth of husks from the embryo to the age of the person was when they died. Now time traveling. Eva is able to displace time within her time bubbles for about a minute, and can even travel in time for much longer periods. One major difficulty with Eva's powers is that if she is stressed or panics, she can lose control of it and generate time spheres or time travel unintentionally, and this is what caused her to become unstuck on 2 separate occasions. After her years of training in 2099 with Ileana, this tendency is much less pronounced, and the only thing that triggers it now is an immediate danger to her or her loved ones. And fun facts. As a child, Eva stated that if she ever got superpowers, she would try hard to be like Captain America, except Australian. And Tempest is featured in the mobile card game X-Men Battle of the Atom, based on the comic book story of the same name. So, there's not a lot outside of the comics dealing with her. But she is awesome. And this leads me to my final thoughts. Like, Tempest was part of a new generation of mutants, and I ended up liking her more than the others. Not because of her powers, which were really impressive, but because of her mindset. Like, she didn't really care about being a mutant, or at least as much as the others cared about being a mutant. She wanted to be the Australian version of Captain America. And that means for everything that she was, she believed in something bigger than just mutant kind. And, let me make sure I portrayed this correctly, because I'm not knocking anything. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to fight for mutant kind. But like Captain America, he didn't care if you were normal, if you were mutant, if you were alien, if you were superpowered, or whatever. He didn't care. He cared about fighting and standing up for what was true and right. So if you were on the side of justice and truth, then you were good in Cap's eyes. And that's how she felt, which I really respect, because she saw more of a bigger picture. And she's a pretty unique mutant in the world because of this mindset. And I think that it can really propel her into the forefront if they show more of an outreach with it. Like, it seems to me that lately, the mutant books are pretty exclusive to mutants, like they're constantly fighting a mutant menace or preventing a catastrophe to the mutant race, as opposed to the bigger picture. And I may be wrong, because I haven't read the X books in a while, but that's just what it seemed that was happening when I kind of stepped away from them. It just seemed everything, it didn't matter what was going on in the rest of the world. Did it affect mutant kind? If it didn't, then they didn't care. I mean, that's just what it seemed like. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, because I don't mind having this conversation. I think it'd be great. Now, can Tempest lead a team? Would she be good on a bigger screen? That I don't really know. I don't know how it would portray. I don't think she could really be one of the front runners when the MCU brings in mutants as a consistent thing. But with her being Australian, it does lend something to a foreign element that could be beneficial for the MCU. So she does have that going for her. Like, if, let's say they're starting to notice mutants now. So we're starting to see them pop up here and there. What if they're showing all over the world, mutants, and they're starting to bring people together? She could easily be one from Australia, because I don't think there's a lot from Australia, or at least a lot of popular ones. With her power is unique, so if they could translate it on screen, it could do well, and that could be the ticket. Like, not just her powers, but the fact that she is a foreign element too. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Like I said, you can email me at b4itall, so b4itall@yahoo.com. You can catch me on Twitter or Instagram under superdeepdive, and try to use the hashtag superherodeepdive. My DMs are open. You can catch me on YouTube under superherodeepdive, where you can like, subscribe, share. Help me get to 1,000. 1,000 is the next goal. We just hit 500. And if you have time, go watch the 500 thank you subscriber video thingamabob, and put who your favorite superhero is and why, and you'll be entered in for a drawing next week. But I think that's going to be it for me now. I'm going to step away. I hope everyone is blessed. I hope everyone is happy. I hope everyone is safe. And I hope everyone is smart. But if you're not smart, don't get caught. I will see you guys later.